All right. My name is Eric Hunley, and welcome to the channel. I'm hoping that many of you are returning. This is the second video I am doing on the interminable Prince Harry ITV interview, which is almost 90 minutes with a guy that Gavin and I watched, so you don't have to. If you want to check out part one, Gavin's going to show it to you right now. And hopefully we did that right, or we're going to look quite silly. That covers the first part of the video. This is going to be 3 parts total. So this is part 2, and we will have a part 3. And if you're watching this far enough in the future, Gavin will show you part 3 right now. All right. Now, I have to set a couple expectations before we get into this, because part 1 took me a little bit of work to get through the copyright system. ITV is, to put it nicely, a PETA, a pain in the arse. I'm going to keep it British here. And they not only claim videos with their footage, I have found, but they block the video from showing anywhere in the world. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because as you watch this, you may find a little bit of continuity issues where a clip will suddenly skip like 1 second or something going through. That is to stop the system from flagging it for having it too long. And I'm doing it in that manner so we can get the message to you no matter what. That's what's going on. Gavin Stone here. Quick introduction, is my resident British expert, which he doesn't like to claim, but for purposes of these videos, I am forcing him to claim his heritage in addition to his masterful ability to do body language and statement analysis. So how are you doing today, Gavin?
Hi, Eric. I'm great. I'm looking forward to this.
Like you trying to teach your great-grandmother, the Queen Mother, how to do Ali G. Go on then, do it.
Oh, that was it.
That was it, right.
That was it.
And
I can't do it again because it probably won't work.
Yeah.
No, she had this amazing flick of the wrist. And yeah, I will never forget that barbecue night in Inch to Bob It. It was wonderful. I felt like I was part of the family. I felt very different to what I felt before that. I felt slightly isolated. I felt slightly different. I didn't know what was going on, and maybe that was again the sort of the suppression of the trauma and the grief. But I had a proper laugh with my gang then.
On this one, I kind of pulled it together to get a few things here. But one thing I really did enjoy seeing his joy about his grandmother or great-grandmother. I mean, come on, that's kind of cool. I don't always want to go beating up on people. It's nice to start out on a high note. And hey, great-grandma's pretty cool doing this. Hey, what's up? But we're also pulling in that as he was describing, he starts to kind of use his right hand a little bit more. He was using his left hand previously. You said that had some meaning, so help us out.
Yeah. So when he's talking about the institution, he's using his left hand and his gesture is over here and he's talking about it. So I reckon there's like a negative feeling towards the institution. Then when he's talking about his family and the memories, he's using his right hand over here. And I think that where those two are mixed, he's got very mixed feelings, having to bifurcate his life previously. And I reckon he's struggled between differentiating between when we're at work and when we're at home. And I know I've worked with family in the past. It can be a nightmare. It's a very, very different thing to when you're at home. And being a royal is probably one of the most difficult jobs in the world when, you know, you're in the public eye and you have to switch between yourself and who you're appearing to be. So looking at those gestures that he's making, I reckon everything positive is over here to the right and everything negative is here to the left. And bear that in mind in the future when he's talking about certain things, when he's talking about certain people and certain events. Look which side he's using and try and figure out whether he's got a positive or a negative kind of connection to those things.
Awesome. And I deliberately pulled a little extra in that clip because I think the most joy or the highest point in this entire interview was that.
Oh, yeah. I would actually have loved to have seen a video of the Queen doing the Ali G, like the finger flick as it was. So it would have been quite good. I would have it's a shame there's a YouTube video of that somewhere, isn't it?
Clear, are you really saying that third in line to the throne or whatever you were, you taking a Class A drug is not a matter of public interest? Because I think that's a question people will have. Do you accept that is a matter of public interest for the press?
I think what's a matter of public interest is the relationship between the institution with the tabloid media. That, to me, is more public interest than anything else.
So pay attention to where his eyes go when in that clip, when he's thinking about the question. They're either going to go up or they're going to go up and left. He does this a couple of times, and this is when he's taken the information in, he starts talking, but he's thinking about his answer carefully before he continues with what he's saying, which I think is really, really relevant. It will come up again later, and you will see why that is quite a relevant thing to be paying attention to.
That too often your interests are sacrificed to his interests, certainly when it comes to the press.
I have a lot of compassion and even understanding as to why certain members of my family need to have that relationship with the tabloid press. I do. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I do understand it.
You don't agree with it. However, aren't you doing it, Harry? Or are you just not doing it with the tabloids? You're doing it with Spotify. You're doing it with Netflix. Is it a matter that it's tawdry to be paid by a tabloid, that the money's too low? You've got to have 100 million versus whatever the hell everybody else is getting?
I was actually going to mention that incongruent shoulder shrug that he does. So either when he's mentioning compassion or something like that, he says, "I know what my dad's feeling," and he does this one-sided shoulder shrug. There's a couple of times he does it, even a double shoulder shrug, which is incongruent with what he's saying. If I say to you, Eric, what do you know about astrophysics? And you go, don't really know anything, that's a congruent shoulder shrug. But when somebody turns around and says, and I'm assuming now, by the way, you might be an expert in astrophysics, I don't know.
Of course.
Well, I thought you might be. But when you turn around and you say to somebody, I have a compassion for what my dad's feeling, that's not congruent with what he's saying. So I don't think that there is compassion. I think he's been a bit deceitful there. That's a definitive sign of deceit.
Yeah, and he might be being a little deceitful too about the whole tabloids. Everybody's running to the tabloids. Only I'm allowed to run to everybody and cry. Only I can speak publicly.
Yeah.
You say that you and your brother didn't want her to and your dad to marry, but you say on their wedding day you were really happy for them. I mean, is that really true that you were?
100%. William and I wanted our father to be happy, and he seemed to be very, very happy with her. We asked him not to get married. He chose to, and that's his decision. But
I'm just kind of. Again, I like pointing out the hypocrisy or whatever, but he's very, very upset about his father and Camilla, but it's his choice. And well, others might have been upset about you, buddy. Like maybe your choice, there could be a problem. Who knows? But in terms of body language, what are you seeing here, Gavin?
Well, if you notice when he's answering the question and he says that's his decision, he's actually shaking his head as he's doing it. So as he's turning around and saying, well, we told him we didn't want him to marry Camilla, but, that's his decision. That tells you exactly what he's thinking more so than what he's actually saying. If I turn around to you and I say, Eric, did you eat my chocolate or did you eat my cookies? And you go, no. Then we know that, it's more than likely that you did. So this is kind of giving an example here of the fact that, even though it may have been his decision, he was definitely dead against it. The other thing I'll point out here as well.
Can I, before you do that, I do want to point out there is an exception to that rule, though.
Yeah.
Or it's not a rule, but if you ask me a question and I say no, that in fact can be an affirmative because it's a forceful no. Now, if I know, like you said, that's a little odd, but occasionally somebody will do a head, almost like a butt or, down to say no, to be more emphatic. Have you found that too?
Yeah, and for every rule there's an exception. It's one of those things. If you ask somebody something and you say, did you do this or whatever, and they shake their head going, I might have. It's just uncertainty. So it needs to be looked at with other signs and signals and tells as well. You're looking for clusters of things that are going to give you that answer. Where the issue was as well is when he was asked did you agree with that or whatever it was? His reply was 100%. And that in itself should be an alarm bell. It's not a yes. So when people either say 1,000,000%, 1,000%, or 100%, or these are things that they're trying to enforce their feelings on you and make it. They're trying to kind of really amplify an answer, and they're trying to convince you rather than convey what they actually feel. If I were to say to you, "Hey Eric, do you want a cup of coffee?" You'd say, "Yeah, okay." You wouldn't say 100%. I'd love a cup of coffee. It doesn't make sense. So when you ask somebody, do you think, were you okay with that? Yeah, and he said 100%, not necessarily. It looks more like he's trying to convince you rather than actually tell you what he actually felt.
And Kate comes along, but you say you really you do love her, and you saw her as the sister you never had. And then you get to this point where you meet the love of your life, and you introduce them, and
they're Suits fans. Who would have thought?
who would have thought?
I never knew that.
Is that some mega eye blocking about meeting Kate? It's like the strobe love. And then continued into the whole, whoa, that was a buck up. I'm not sure, like, when you met the love of your life, that was a very odd reaction, almost like, get ready to perform, I am here. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. So if we back up to the beginning of the clip where he's first asked, then you met Kate, and you loved her or whatever it was, and his blink rate goes right up. He's got this cheek bite, he's got this tongue jut, he's got all these stress signals going on, which he may have at the time liked her, but I think they've definitely had a bit of a fallout, or there's definitely some kind of tension there that has got him now to the point where he's like, yeah, me and her are not friends at the minute. So that's the first thing. My big concern here is, remember the last video we talked about how he did that exact same thing. He's leaning forward, and all of a sudden he's got his back up. So that's the only other time we've seen this, and now we're seeing it again. So, and this is when he says, "I've met the love of my life." Now I got some.
Or he was told he was met the love of, and that's why I was saying that the way he did that, it's like it's almost like she walked in the room. I know that's a weird analogy, but you know how the whole. We're sitting there talking, da 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 da, and we're saying something about it. So then they walk in the room, and I don't know. It is, like I said, that it's like a performative, like a buck up, like I have to change to gird myself or something.
I've got a possible theory with this, and again, it's very speculative. But when we were talking yesterday about Prince Hazard having his daddy issues, this was one of those things that it's possible when he got with Meghan, he liked her, but it was to kind of stick one up at daddy. They didn't like her, whatever the case may be. And over time, he's grown to like her, grown to get into this relationship, which has been growing stronger over years. As the palace have kind of voice their disdain, shall we say, or the fact that they don't really like the idea of this relationship continuing. I reckon it's more of a case of, don't take my toy away from me. You ever seen two toddlers playing?
Oh yeah, put up your dukes.
Yeah. You get two toddlers playing, and the one picks up a toy, and the other toddler goes, "No, I want that one." So the other toddler picks up another toy. And you get these toddlers that they don't want the actual toy, but they want the one that the other one's playing with. And I think this has been the case in their relationship. It's a case of he doesn't want his toy taken away. He knows it's controversial, and I think there's a bit of an issue where this has become a long-term relationship, and I don't think it's quite as good as what he first thought it was. And I think he's been fighting for something that could be kind of down to principle more so than the fact that he actually really wants to be with her.
It could well be. What was that last little bit? Was that a Britishism, or was that an inside joke between him and Bradby? Because I know that they're friends.
Yeah, I did. I picked up. They said something like they're both Suits fans, which I believe isn't a TV drama series.
Oh. I have no idea. I don't watch your TV. So
I
okay.
thought it
So
was an American show.
oh, Suits fans. Oh,
Yes,
Suits. That is American. I've never watched a show, folks.
I
Confession.
don't watch much
Sorry.
TV, unfortunately, so I can't tell you.
I don't think they were ever expecting me to get or to get into a relationship with someone like Megan, who had a very successful career.
Right.
That's a perfect uncertainty all around. The best you expect. The tongue.
If you notice, when he speaks normally, he's got this pause, say what I want, say the next part, say the last part. He's got this, and that's how he usually talks the majority of the time. He thinks his answers through, says what he wants, thinks about the
Trained.
next.
He's well
Yeah.
trained. He's a very well trained public speaker.
Yeah, he's done it really, really well. And then that last little bit there, when he was talking about Meghan Markle, there was this area where he said, I don't think they expected me to have this great relationship with Meghan Markle, who had, and you see him squint, you see the pause, and you see it trail away when he goes, a very successful career. And he's got that speech fade towards the end a little bit, that certain tone change of uncertainty with what he's saying, and he's trying to think of something, and I don't think he could think of the right thing to fit, and he said a very successful career, and I think midway through it, he's probably thought, that could be argued.
I don't know. It's very subtle, folks. I will say it is slight. It's very, very subtle. The whole thing though is just eking of uncertainty.
He may have decided at the beginning of the sentence that he was going to go one way with it, and then decided to change it midway through. Which people do, understandably. So he may have been in the process of thinking, do I mention this now, or do I hold back and and talk about this later and build up to it? So we'll see where it goes.
You have the newspapers laid out pretty much in every single palace house that is around. So yes, it does. It creates this competition. And if you're the new kids on the block and you come in and you're stealing the limelight, not a limelight that you've asked to be put in or have, a limelight that the press, the British press, have decided for you, presumably because of clickbait and it sells newspapers, whatever it is. But just as much as William and Kate suffered, they went through a large portion of the same things that Meghan and I went through. But then I always believed that, well, I'm the spare. I'm no competition to my father, I'm no competition to my brother. I think this will be absolutely fine. How wrong I was.
He seems to be withholding things.
Yeah. That is almost like you can see that distaste and that withholding when he's doing that, and you can see that bit of a cheek bite when he's doing that, which comes up from time to time. And if you notice again with his left hand when he's talking about the British press, when he's talking about things he doesn't like, it's always with his left hand, and when he's talking about things he does like about him and Meghan, it's with his right hand or both. So you see there a couple of times he's talking about. He's in his words, Pa and Camilla. So he builds up to the sentence and he goes, so what, Pa and Camilla, and it's almost like he doesn't even want to say the words. He's thinking about, do I call her stepmommy? Do I call her mummy? Do I call her, the Queen Consort? What do I call her? And you can see this kind of, he doesn't like the idea of even talking about the two of them in the same sentence. So he definitely has.
And he did it again when he felt forced, like he had to acknowledge that Kate went through it. Kate and William went through. He's like, it just, it was almost like it was being forced out of him. Kind of like we got in a fist fight earlier, and our parents said, "Now say you're sorry." Sorry.
Yep.
It kind of felt that way, like, ugh, if I don't say it, it's going to be out there. So definitely all this seems to be trying to be as magnanimous as he could be.
Well, what this clip actually does, it actually reinforces the fact that he sees himself as differently. Not just the fact that the world sees him as differently, but he sees himself differently because he said, Kate and William went through it. I thought, oh, well, I won't have to. So he's saying himself, I won't have to do any of that because I'm the spare. So, you know, and again, it's kind of forgotten here that it was his mom. It was Diana that called him the Spare. That label, that started this label, the Heir and the Spare. So not a lot of people kind of remember that. So he's kind of using it as if, you know, to his advantage there. But you know, it was possibly done with love. Who knows? But yeah, he's very kind of annoyed at the fact that, you know, he doesn't think he should have had to have gone through what his brother has gone through, and that he sees himself as differently. And the fact that, like you say, the fact that he's had to admit it, yeah, is very much of that very, you know, sorry.
Almost like I was saying before. He's the same age that he was when he lost his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Me and William, like I guess a lot of siblings, or maybe not, William and I used to fight all the time. Now the difference to that was we were kids. We used to shoot each other with BB guns. We used to have firework fights. All of this stuff that I talk about in the book. What was different here was this level of frustration. And you know, I talk about the red mist that I had for so many years, and I saw this red mist in him.
Okay, this one I'm sneaking in on him, but one early on, there was a wicked little tinkle in his eye when he talked about shooting each other with a BB gun. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you caught that, the little.
Yep.
Very proud, but very proud of that, and very proud of the fighting. But then he led into the red mist. And I think because this section is kind of about his family, this helps start to get into the conflict with him and his brother. Mm-hmm. I found it peculiar, his choice of red mist for his brother, that he saw this. And I couldn't help but thinking, is this a little confession through projection?
Highly possibly. He's obviously there's definitely a lot of disdain for his brother, if that's the right word. Sorry. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of disdain there for his brother, if that's the right word, and it possibly is a confession. I love that little cheeky grin that he's got when he's talking about the fights with the BB guns. I think that in itself, even as kids, was his way of kind of taking out some of his anger on his brother. You know, taking out, so he gets to shoot his big brother, which is great because now it's a competition of who can shoot each other the most. You know, and I think there's been a lot of times he snuck up on him, shot him with it. So there's probably some good memories there. He's using his right hand and his both hands when he's talking about that. So, you know, there's definitely good memories there. But when he leads into that red mist, yeah, there's a high possibility that he's saying there's been several times since then, you know, I've had this red mist. I've wanted to you know, attack him physically. You know, and so he recognised it when he saw it coming from his brother.
Or what he saw as it could have been, he inferred. But on that note, good point. And to give the guy a break, again, many people have an older sibling and they're super excited. Like, confession, one of my proudest moments as a little boy was punching my sister in the nose when I was like 4 years old. Okay, guys, I was 4. It was immature. But she was mocking me, and I socked her. And she was like 7 years older, so it wasn't like a fair deal. But siblings, there's a lot in those rivalries. And then if you have the thing where you're always going to be number 2, no matter what happens, I could see that there is a little bit of a whole, oh, I'll get him here, I'll get him there. Oh, he can't do anything now, where it would be like taking your wins where you can. Not saying that it's proper, just saying that it's, shall we say, human.
I don't know whether they'll be, you know, watching this or not, but what they have to say to me and what I have to say to them will be in private, and I hope it can stay that way, because the last moment that we were together was during, you know, the Queen's funeral.
Okay, well, two parts of that. In private, Harry's very concerned about the privacy, which, by the way, he's already pushed back on that. So this is all in flux as we're doing this. He bragged, many people say, I'll just say he wrote about the number of people he killed in Afghanistan, was criticized for this, and then pushed back saying, how dare you? How dare you? You press, you bad press, you lying liars who reported on words that I wrote in my book. How dare you? Well, we've got the same scenario here where he's been going on and on and on, railing about just wanting to live my life, just wanting to be alone, just wanting to get by, just wanting to sell our story for $100 million.
Yeah. He can hardly blame the institution for kind of what he's doing here. He's decided to write a book. And when I say write a book, I use that term very loosely because it was written for him. He's had a ghostwriter come in. He's told the ghostwriter what he wants to be in the book, and the ghostwriter's done it. He's then approved it and it's gone out for publication. So when he says these are his words, not really. So when he puts a book out there with all this kind of exposure of what's happening in the palace, and then he goes on interviews and he goes on Oprah and he's gone and he's recently, apart from this one, he's done the Late Show, he's done 60 Minutes, he's done all these different interviews.
Oh, all of them. I mean, the guy's everywhere.
He's doing the rounds. I mean, this is like this is like a mobile circus. He's got he's all over the place doing the rounds. He can't really complain too much about not having privacy. It's
but you see that, but now they're saying, no, that's not what we said. So just whatever narrative you want to pick, as soon as you push back, they'll just say, no, we didn't say it. And they claim something else. It's ludicrous. And
he seems to think the general public has got a very short memory. And if there's one thing that I've learned, the internet never forgets.
You say you hope discussions will be private. You've just put enormous amounts of private conversations in the public domain. And wouldn't your brother say to you, Harry, how could you do this to me? After everything we went through, wouldn't that be what he would say?
He'd probably say all sorts of different things. But, for the last however many years, let's just focus on the last 6 years, the level of planting and leaking from other members of the family means that, in my mind, they have written countless books. Certainly millions of words have been dedicated to trying to trash my wife and myself, to the point of where I had to leave my country.
Oh, God. That's the part that pisses me off to no end. So disingenuous. And then, they've been leaking. They've been revealing. This same pair. And this is fact. It's been admitted in court. Omid Scobie wrote the entire book. No, we never communicated until they went to court. Until in court, you find out, oh, yes, they not only communicated, they shaped the narrative. Mm-hmm. So to sit there and have this son of a bee laying this behavior, again, I'm going to say confession through projection. And I think that is a fair statement because it was proven in the court of your court that they were doing it. And I find that disgusting. He's just painting a brush on everybody around him, exactly what I feel like he's been doing with his wife for a while.
Yeah. At no point is he taking the blame, accepting responsibility for anything, and it's starting to drive me a little bit crazy with this, almost like a rumour mill he's creating, where he's turning around and saying things. There are leaks. There are this happening. This happened, that happened, and when people say, "Well, who did this? Who said that?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not prepared to tell you." He's like, "Well, tell us about. You said there was a conversation involving X. Who was that with?" "I'm not prepared to talk." And it's almost like, he's coming along saying, "Hey, Eric, I've heard something really, really awful about you. We've got some really disturbing news." And you go, "Really? What have you heard?" "Oh, I'm not going to tell you." Well, who told you?" "Oh, I'm not comfortable with sharing that." Well, why tell me then? The whole idea of doing these interviews, if you're going to come clean, if you're going to be open, if you're going to be transparent, then do that.
A couple of things. You talk about accountability. In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
No, we didn't. The British press said that.
Right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they're racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
there was concern about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
Right.
That is coming up next. And I actually already did a video on that with the great Nate Brody on the fantastic Nate and Eric channel. and I know this because it's half my channel, and we discussed this. There are so many problems with that last statement. It's mind-boggling. So I hope, folks, that you tune in to part 3. Subscribe now. It should be out within a couple days. I will force Gavin to sit through this until the end of time, and we will cover that. And then we will cover, if you want it, the Stephen Colbert interview. So for now, everybody, and for Gavin, thank you so much.
Thank you.